just to go over the case facts, I'm sure you guys have all heard it 3 other times already, so we'll make it a little quick. So what we broke it down to was the perspectives from all 3 different people. So we have Engineer A, Jones, and the university. So basically, Engineer A is approached by his research professor, Jones, and is asked to do some consulting work in being able to create a request for proposal, or RFP as we'll hereby call it, for a new building project. Jones works at the university with the professor and is part of this building committee, and he has prior interest in geothermal technology and wants to hire his research student to do the consulting work. The dilemma comes here in the university because they're providing course credit to Engineer A, and at the same time they would be paying Engineer A to do this work. So, go.
So the first question that's asked is, was it ethical for Engineer A to be enrolled in the class for credit at the university and at the same time serve as a consultant for the university? So for this we said absolutely. As long as Engineer A discloses to the university that he is receiving class credit and also being on the board, then there should be no problem with that. And in order to back this up, we cited the Code of Ethics, rule number 2, which says to avoid perceived conflicts or interests whenever possible, and to disclose them to all affected parties. So in this case, as long as Engineer A tells the university that he's working in the lab for credit for Jones, there's no real way for him to be held liable for anything.
So to add to this, the university, the question is the fact that whether or not the university should pay the research student where he's already doing research for the university. It's kind of like double paying them. You're helping them do research and at the same time you're paying them to get the research back, which technically should belong to the university already. What we're saying here is that the university would pay somebody regardless. They're willing to hire a consultant to do this work, and Jones is looking for somebody to do that. So whether or not they hire the research student or they hire somebody else, they'd be spending the same amount of money. And we're saying as long as the research student or Engineer A discloses to the university that he is doing research, he's doing research in similar material, and he's doing research specifically for Professor Jones, who's deciding on the RFP or he's deciding on an RFP, it should be okay because all the facts are laid out. So question 2 was it ethical for Engineer A to participate in the preparation of the RFP? And again, for this we said yes. And the reason for this is the same thing as before. As long as Engineer A is open and announces the fact that he is a student, he is doing research under Jones, and they're like the material that Jones would like and the research that he's doing are both geothermal technology. So to reference this, we said Ethics Rule 6, to maintain and improve our technical competence and to undertake technological tasks for other only if qualified by training or experience, or after full disclosure of pertinent limitations. So we're saying here in this case that he is limited in the fact that he does have a little bit of bias, both Jones and Engineer A. Engineer A obviously is a little bit biased because he already is doing research and he's kind of just getting paid for it, whereas Jones is biased because he already has interest in making this new building for geothermal technology, and so he's kind of picking his own research student to do this.
Right, but however, again, we feel that because he's actually, for this question, he's not actually deciding on anything, he's just helping write up a proposal, he's very well qualified in order to do that because, one, he worked for company YZX, which was a consulting company, so he understands how to write up these kinds of proposals. And in addition to that, he's very familiar with the field. And we believe that Jones, having him in his lab, wouldn't have picked him to be on the building committee if he wasn't familiar with his quality of work and familiar with the fact that he understood what was required in that position. So the third question was asked was it ethical for Engineer A to review the proposals? And for this one, we had to say no, it's not ethical for him to review the proposals. And the reason for this is that Engineer A is slightly biased when it comes to this because one, he is in Jones's research lab, so Jones has some influence over him when it comes to this, and because Jones wants to incorporate the geothermal technology into the building project, we feel that since he's leading research in that field, he would want to include his own research in that. And so the fact that Engineer A is working in his lab could kind of lead to the fact that Jones would manipulate him into picking his research for this. To back this up, we use the Code of Ethics Rule 7, which is to seek and accept and offer honest criticism of technical work. And again, we feel that because he's in Jones's lab, he wouldn't offer honest criticism for the work. He'd be biased in that sense.
So then we started to brainstorm of reasons why, it would be unethical for engineer A to submit a proposal and do consulting work. We realized that it would be a conflict of interest for Jones, and Jones is interested in implementing geothermal research. So we thought that being a research student as engineer A, Jones could kind of manipulate his students to, make a proposal in this certain sense. And Jones also, at the end of the day, has a decision on which proposal to decide for or to choose. So by having his own student do it and to have a student who's working in a specific field that he wants the building to go towards, we felt that it would be a little bit unethical for that. Although, going after this? Or?
No.
Okay. Although we found that it's not really a conflict of interest for engineer A because he's not really gaining too much out of this. He is getting the fact that he gets to make this proposal and he gets to get paid. But once again, we said that the school is going to pay somebody regardless of whether or not it's engineer A or if it's somebody else to make this proposal. And Jones picked engineer A probably because he realized that he's been working with engineer A and there's a set quality, he's been able to see the quality of work that engineer A has been able to do. So it's not just that Jones is picking him for his own bias and manipulations or anything like that. It could also just be because of engineer A's prior consulting work and the fact that they've been working closely together before.
Right. And again, it specifically states the company YCX doesn't mind. They're not submitting their own proposal and they do not mind that engineering A is doing this. So we feel that if engineer A submits documentation saying that on the record I am in Professor Jones's research lab and I'm involved in this field and they want to hire me on to do this report and build these funds proposals, then we feel that he's completely allowed within ethics to take the position on the board and to also help prepare the initial funds proposal, but not to actually be involved in the choices of picking which one should be, which one they should take.
Because he would be submitting one in that case, and picking your own or being able to pick one in something that you submitted is obviously unfair. And so to conclude, we would just say that, like Daniel kind of stated, it would be ethical for engineer A to take the consulting position to the university after fully disclosing to them that he is currently doing research under Professor Jones. So we really stress the fact that engineer A would have to fully disclose that he is a research student and that he is currently doing research under Professor Jones, which could create a little bit of bias, but after disclosing to that and if the university still agrees to hire him, I think it would be an ethical solution.
Yeah, it's the university's decision at that point.
And that's it.
Thank you.
So, one question that I have is, when you were going through your analysis, did you make an assumption that there would be a geothermal capability in this building expansion that's going on?
It's an assumption to say that his proposal would be on or his RFP would be on that, but stating that Professor Jones wants something to do with that and that engineer A is doing research in that field, we thought that it would be the worst case scenario that everything is in the same field.
So are you assuming also that Professor Jones is going to submit a proposal to the university for this building that would include geothermal?
We're assuming that
address geothermal?
we're assuming that the engineering A is submitting a proposal for that, not Jones himself.
Oh, you're assuming that A will submit a proposal?
We're saying, yeah, if we're taking that as also like the worst case scenario, in that his research is matching his proposal.
Would your answer to the third question change if he didn't submit a proposal?
Third question, oh, would he be able to pick his own?
No, would he
Would it be reasonable for him
to review the proposal?
I would say
No, I'd
no.
still say no, because anytime you're submitting something, it's like submitting a paper to a contest if you're being able to pick your own paper out of it.
No, but if he's not submitting anything.
We'd still say no. We talked about this because of the fact that Jones sort of has some form of influence over him, being the fact that he's in his research lab for credit. That it would be unethical for him to have any decision making because if engineer A doesn't submit a proposal, then Jones will be submitting a proposal because Jones.
So you're saying that one or the other is going to, or both, will be submitting a proposal, is that what you're saying, to do this job?
Mhm.
So
If
the
not-
RFP is a request for companies to come in and say, let me build this building, or let me build this building. And what you're saying is that one of those two guys is going to be asking the university to let them follow the requirements in the request for proposal and build the building.
Right.
Would your answer
Okay.
change if neither Jones nor engineer A submitted a proposal?
The answer to question 3.
Yeah.
Well, still in no. It's still no because if engineer A is deciding, or if engineer A and Jones are deciding on the RFP to choose, then if it comes down to like a vote, Jones will be able to manipulate engineer